So again, my name is Michael Clark. Thanks for joining us again today. We have the opportunity of hearing from CCA's President Maria Sarli and President-elect Ellen Kleinstuber. As I mentioned at the end of our last segment, I do want to switch topics here and talk about volunteering for a little bit, because the two of you, obviously, when you look at your bios, you've had a lot of experience volunteering. You just touched in our last segment on some of those volunteering opportunities. Maria, I'll start with you. How did you get started volunteering within the profession?
Well, I actually did start by, grading essay exams for the SOA and then writing exams. And I actually had to stop doing that because my husband was also an actuary and he's younger than I am. And he was starting to take some of the exams that I was involved in grading and writing. So of course I had to stop that. And so that's when I moved in and started looking for other opportunities. And a lot of the opportunities that I took were speaking roles. And I took those mainly because I was terrified of it and I knew it was something I needed to get better at. But then from there, I just started looking for things that interested me. And because I have a technical bent, there were all sorts of opportunities. I'm a member of the Joint Board Advisory Committee that puts together the enrollment exams. And I was on the pension committee for a number of years, on a number of the ASB committees, writing ASOPs, things like that, because I have a technical bent and that did interest me. But there are tons of opportunities depending on, what it is you like to do. So you can find something that, is in your wheelhouse that you're passionate about, and that will really help an organization like CCA or one of the others.
And just a follow-up question to that, Maria, how did you go about getting those speaking roles? Where would somebody look if they were interested today, and how do you actually go through that process of getting selected to speak at a session?
Well, I mean, some people who speak at sessions are approached by the recruiters because the recruiter knows that they are proficient in a particular topic. But, other people will simply reach out to the program committee. Every meeting or every webinar series has a program committee. There's a program committee for CCA's pension meeting. There's a separate one for the annual meeting that CCA puts on. There's a separate one for the webinar committee, and they're always looking for speakers. They're always looking for ideas as well as to topics. So if you have worked on a particular topic with a client and you feel like you know a lot about it, or if there's a topic that you're really passionate about, all you really need to do is, go on CCA's website, look at who the members of those committees are and reach out to them and volunteer. And chances are you will get the opportunity.
Ellen, how about you? How did you get started volunteering? You mentioned the Philadelphia Actuarial Club as a starting point in our last segment. And then how did you go from that to, what was your path to where you got to today?
Well, that's an easy one, Michael. I both blame and credit Tanya Manning for this. And Tanya, if you're listening, thank you very much. Tanya and I used to work together at Aon when she was a chief actuary. And so she recruited me to be part of her internal technical resource team, providing national support to the retirement actuarial practice. And so we got to know each other through this, and we learned we worked really well together. And I think, Tanya was, at that time, she had gone out, she was blazing the trail as a volunteer and getting involved with things, and, kind of set that wheel in motion for me as well. One of the things that I got to own internally at Aon for a while was planning and organizing our internal continuing education offerings. And that led to Tanya suggesting that maybe I become part of the planning committee for what at the time was the joint CCA and SOA employee benefits spring meeting. We don't have that anymore, but it was around for a few years, and it was right in the mid 2000s when PPA was being developed and enacted. So there was a lot to learn, and it really helped me to be in a situation where, I came in and I didn't know anything about planning continuing education events or conference, but on some of the technical subject matters being talked about, I knew as much as anyone else did at the time. So it kind of gave me that little impetus. And I suppose I must have done an okay job for it, because then I kept getting opportunities to do more things. One of the next big roles I moved on to was being involved with the Academy Pension Committee. And that was one where I went and asked to join. I had, gotten involved in a few other things. I was starting to kind of run in those circles, so to speak, of the people who do a lot of volunteering. And I looked at this and said, it's something I'd like to give my time to. So I went and asked the person who was the chair of the committee at the time, who I knew through kind of some of my other volunteering and speaking stuff. And he said, well, let me see what we can do and get you on. And I did. And then next thing I knew, like a year or so after that, I was asked if I wanted to move into the role of vice chair of the committee, because some of the skills and abilities that I had, they looked at as being very complementary to the person who was going to be the chair of the committee. And then just kind of kept going from there. So I think, taking that first step in so many things is the hardest. But once you do that and you get a taste for volunteering, then you get to see, is this particular role that I'm in something that does suit me well or is serving me well? And then you start to see what some of the other things are out there, and then you find your path from there. And for some people, that means continuing to grow and move on to the next thing. There's some other people who volunteer in the profession who have found certain things that are their niche, and they have been through and volunteered for those particular things for decades. That's where their passion lies, and that's what they want to give their time to. So it really is just look for what the opportunities are. And if you don't know, ask someone else in your firm who's out volunteering. Reach out to me or Maria or Michael or someone on the staff at the CCA, and we can all help you figure out where you would get started.
All right, excellent. You both have alluded to this throughout our conversation here, but I wanted to get maybe a little bit more specific. Maria, what have been the benefits to you personally of volunteering?
Probably the biggest benefit is just gaining more confidence, whether it's through speaking or through leading a committee. I've gotten to be a much more confident person than I used to be. Another thing that I've learned is I've learned an awful lot about other actuarial specialties besides my own. I work in kind of a little pension cocoon, and there's so much more to the actuarial world that I wouldn't necessarily have encountered, but I've met a lot of people who work in other actuarial specialties and just learned a ton. And another thing is just meeting all those people. I've met, wonderful, very interesting, very friendly and engaging people through volunteering. And probably finally, because I do tend to pursue the technical, and I have chosen a lot of roles that are kind of technical in nature, I really have become and stayed much more strong technically than I would have been if I didn't have those experiences in addition to my work at Willis Towers Watson.
Ellen, how about you? Benefits of volunteering?
Yeah, if you let me talk long enough, I could rattle off a list of things or as long as my arm. But I think some of the sort of the top ones for me, I spent the early part of my career, the first 17 almost years at Aon. And when I first started there, the firm I was at that was part of Aon, we had like 200 people in the office. And by the time I left Aon 17 years later, there were like, 40,000 people globally. But the rest of my career since then, I've worked at mid-sized firms of 100, 120 employees. And being in that environment, building a network of other actuaries that I could tap into to have as a sounding board on technical matters or consulting trends, or how are we interpreting this one section of the latest guidance that came out, was something that's been really helpful to me in helping to just maintain competitiveness against some of the larger firms that have a lot more resources in-house. I don't work at a Willis Towers Watson, and I have Maria Sarli I can tap into. So I need to find out, how do I replicate that? And one of the things that I've done is I now have a network that includes Maria Sarli from Willis Towers Watson. It also has helped me just as a consultant to maintain a sort of a broader view and draw on a wider range of opinions in formulating and refining kind of how I view things and how I consult and advise my clients. I talked a little bit earlier about some of the leadership and management skills that it's helped me to learn, both by watching other people and borrowing things that they do that I found to be effective for me in my leadership roles, and by having the chance to try some of these things on for myself in a sort of a safe and supportive environment. That includes simple things like planning an agenda, and then how do you keep conversations on track? to get into like one really specific one, being on the board of directors at CCA, we go through an annual strategic planning exercise. And when I joined the board, I'd never been through that before, but now go, 6, 7 years after that, and I moved into my chief actuary role. And one of the first things I was tasked with was helping to write a strategic plan for our company and my practice. And if I hadn't had that opportunity, I would have been a complete fish out of water, no idea what I'm doing or where to start with it. And I think the most important thing that I've gotten out of it is that I found people who are role models to me, who have been mentors to me, who have been champions for me. And I have managed to form some very deep, lifelong friendships that I really cherish with people who I wouldn't otherwise have gotten to know. Many of them outside the pension area, getting to know people who are in the health area or the life insurance area. A few in the P&C space, working in different types of plans, different parts of the country. So I think there's each of us will find our own thing, but the one thing that I think I want to just kind of wrap with is that volunteering is not a zero-sum game. This is not someone gives and someone receives. Almost everyone universally that I've talked to who has spent time volunteering back to the actuarial profession says the same thing, that they have gotten far more out of this than they ever feel that they've given to it. So this is, volunteering is a way to help you have a meaningful impact on our profession, because our profession is us. It's not some other, this is us, this is our profession. And most of the actuarial organizations run primarily through volunteer efforts. Some have larger staff than others. But without volunteers, we don't have the 5 U.S. actuarial organizations. So when you're done your formal education or you're coming to the completion of it, this is a great way to go and leverage some of what you've learned in a different way and give back.
Yeah, and I've had similar experiences, as you mentioned, Ellen, where I can take those skills that I've learned from volunteering, whether it's being on a committee or chairing a committee, and then take them back to my day job. And hopefully be better at my day job because of the volunteering. And I 100% agree with that, that notion that even if you are in a volunteer role because you want to get back to the profession, you're going to get way more out of it, even if it's just for the networking benefits alone. So I 100% agree with that. That very much resonates with me. Ellen, what advice do you have for someone that's maybe thinking about volunteering, but might not be sure where to start?
Well, I'm going to put this in terms that I think actuaries are going to really get. So I want you to think about and visualize a Venn diagram that has 3 circles on it. The first one is for the things that you're the best at. The second is for things that are going to help promote or advance the actuarial profession. And the third is, and most important, I think, is finding what you're passionate about. And then if you look at the intersection of those 3 things, that's where you want to start looking for volunteer opportunities. What is going to, help you use the things that you're uniquely talented at, that are your strengths, that are going to benefit you and the rest of your peers in the profession, and that passion part of it. There's things we have to do in our day jobs and in our lives that we do them because we have to do them, not because we really enjoy it. Volunteering shouldn't be one of those things. So find something that you really feel strongly about, and then look for opportunities that match up with that. We need volunteers throughout the profession for a wide variety of things, whether it's planning or speaking continuing ed events, authoring papers, developing and grading exams like Maria did, just participating in or leading committees, different councils, boards of directors. So there's just a ton of different things out there that you can do. And there is something out there that's going to match with that intersection for you.
Maria, same question to you. What advice do you have for someone that's thinking about getting into volunteering, but not really sure where to start?
Very similar to what Ellen said. I mean, it comes down to finding something that you're really passionate about and is in your wheelhouse. And there are so many different opportunities that you can find something. And I would suggest that you start small. you don't want to go out and volunteer for 4 different things and then be so overwhelmed that you don't enjoy any of them and you don't do a very good job at any of them. Start small. If there are topics that you know a lot about or are passionate about and you think you might want to be a speaker, but you're not quite ready to, volunteer to do that, you can start small by volunteering to be a session recorder at a session on that topic. The session recorders work with the speakers and help plan the session, and then they take notes and produce maybe a 1-page article about the session. So there's ways to start small, and there are a lot of different roles, and some take up more time than others. So start small, see what you like, and go from there. If you look on the CCA website, there's a rubric that has a lot of different volunteer opportunities that you can get information, about what each of them is about. And there's a volunteer survey you can fill out. So you can take a look at that and kind of figure out where you might want to start.
Excellent.
Yeah, and Michael, just real quick, for those who are looking for that, if you go out to the CCA website, look under member resources, and then there's a drop down for get involved with the CCA, and you'll find that rubric that Maria was looking at, and there's links on there to take you to different types of volunteer activities so you can learn more about them.